So our next
Yeah,
topic is
yeah.
Trump. Trump has been uh, diagnosed with COVID.
No,
Right?
he tested
He
positive.
tested positive. Okay, he tested positive for it. Now I've been, the way they're spinning it, obviously, is that he's in great spirits. He's doing, whatever. But it
He's
seems
on his
like
deathbed, apparently.
it seems like the story is
Yeah.
basically he started showing symptoms on whatever Thursday or Friday. Then he started coughing, and they basically insisted that he go to Walter Reed. Okay, and he was reluctant to do it, but in that video he made on Friday, he looked uncharacteristically pale,
Right.
not orange. He looked kind of white or
Yeah.
whatever, and there was something going on there. And just doing a little bit of reading around, it's like when he's a 74-year-old man. He's probably about 240 pounds. He's obese, not morbidly obese. Um, he was coughing, which indicates that it has gone into his lungs. So it's a very serious situation. And the incubation period is 5 to 7 days. So that means he probably picked it up around the time he was nominating Amy Comey for the Supreme Court. And once you start showing symptoms, those 48 hours are critical, and that's what they've said. They said the next 2 days will be critical, but today is probably one of his worst days, or his will be his worst day, and tomorrow, and he may not make it. He probably has a 90% chance of surviving, but there's a
99.94% chance, actually.
Oh,
okay.
I thought that was Melania. I thought he was like 90.
Well, whatever. I'm just saying that
I could be wrong. I don't know.
there's different opinions, but I mean, if he's dead, he's dead, right? So, we have no control over that. We'll see what happens, and also he may survive and he may be fine, or he may survive with recurring symptoms for a long time. So a lot of times you have fatigue that lasts for months. Um, it could impact his ability to do his job to the extent that
Oh
he
yeah.
does it. Well, anyways,
Yeah.
it's a major story because it goes against the whole narrative that basically I'm immune to this,
Right.
and I'm not gonna be stopped by this, and that he was forced to do this. Now we'll see what happens. So we don't know. Today's October 4th. I think in 3 days we'll know a lot more about what's going on, whether it's going to have an impact or not.
So that's interesting timing. Is the Pence-Harris debate on Wednesday still going to happen? And do you guys think that has much? Maybe now it has a lot more. Maybe it's required a lot more now. You're right.
Well, I mean, if Trump doesn't make it, obviously, I think they would cancel the debate. But I think,
Yeah,
yeah, I think they'll probably go ahead with it.
yeah.
And I think, yeah, it's going to have that added dimension of what happens if Trump is not able to, you know, go into a second term. I mean, I think Trump obviously wants to do that, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see what it's like.
Yeah.
You know,
So, again, I have a different take on
yeah,
things. And I think that, first of all, it should be recognized the fact that Trump is now one of many world leaders who has supposedly contracted COVID-19. And
Yeah.
guess what? They have survived. And Boris Johnson, it was the same thing. Everybody was like, oh my God, Boris Johnson's going to die. And guess what? He's still alive.
Yeah.
And this, what, like exactly what you were saying, you actually were going to, you made my point without me even having to say it, Steve. The fact that this reinforces the narrative that you have to be a good little boy and girl, and you have to wear your mask, you have to lock down, and you have to get the vaccine. Like
Mm.
that's what this is pushing. Because, and like we were talking about before, that even throughout the debate, how many times was a vaccine mentioned? And it was even talked about the fact that Kamala Harris, it was this whole big controversy because now she was perpetuating this whole left right thing where
Right.
now it's either it's Biden's vaccine or it's Trump's vaccine.
Right. Right.
When in
Right.
actuality, it's going to be the same people who are producing it, whether
Yeah.
it's one administration or the other, right? But there is a lot of money being made right now with all of the testing. And obviously, think about there's 7 companies that are working on a vaccine right now, right? There's a lot of money that is being invested in this stuff. So this is not for nothing. And
Right. I mean,
everybody
there's a lot of
and
money involved in our because of our system, right? And like, and as far as just go back to the testing, like now we have that, you go and get that test with the results in whatever 48 to 72 hours. That's not. There is a test that you get almost instant results from, but there's no money to be made from that test as much, or they're not going to get the information that they're going to get. Like if you go to CVS and drive through and get your vaccine, where you have to, first of all, it's not free, you're paying for it because it's getting paid for through tax dollars, right? I mean, I don't know what CVS makes on each pop of the test, whatever, but I mean it does cost something. But there is an instant test like you could do at home, like a home pregnancy test. You can there's a test you can do at home and get almost instant results, but they want the data. They want the data to see who is getting this, where is it occurring, et cetera, right? But the problem is, if you have this, you're contagious during that period if you actually have it. So it's really, it's not in the public health's interest to have to wait so long for the testing, but obviously the system is supporting a testing regime that makes more money for the pharma, as well as getting more data. I don't agree with Daisy as far as the masks. I think the masks are, I mean, obviously some situations where you don't need the mask, but I think the masks do help to some extent prevent transmission, because you've seen what's happened in certain just at Trump rallies, or in certain places in the country where people don't wear masks, and there have been outbreaks.
reinforces the narrative.
Yep, that's a narrative. I'm enforcing it.
Well, it seems like weddings and things, right? Those are the biggest ones that you see. Actually, have they actually tracked any mass outbreaks to Trump rallies necessarily? I know the debate itself, they said like 12 people that were handling stuff before setting up and all that ended up getting it. And
well, I mean, how it's transmitted, who knows? I mean, but like Chris
yeah,
Christie has it now, or it's tested positive, right? So
right.
Chris Christie was helping him prepare for the debate. Um, I know there is certain clusters, like with that conference in Boston, which was early on.
Right. But I haven't actually heard anything attributed to like anyone saying like there were 10,000 people at this Trump rally and 500 of them have. I haven't heard anything at all regarding specific. Hey, all these people were at a Trump rally.
Yeah, I can't give you specific data on the Trump
rally.
Plus, I mean, at Tulsa, there wasn't anybody there anyway. So,
yeah. Though I do myself. I mean, it seems like common sense to myself that wearing a mask would help reduce the spread. I would believe. I mean, almost everything that humans give to each other is via spread of.
I mean, there's a lot of conspiracy going around this, whether it was a modified virus, or done in a lab, or what's the story behind it. But I mean, it's a global phenomenon, and it's you have to look at the excess death rates, not just the death rates, but like how many people normally die over a 3-month period here compared to a year ago, and is there an increase? And there is an increase. So it does seem to be there's some cause and effect with the virus.
But any of the measures that were taken as a reaction to this supposed pandemic, right, then that cannot be taken into account as to maybe why there was an excess in deaths. It's just the fact that it's this pandemic. That's it.
Is that what you're arguing, or are you saying?
No, that's what you're arguing. And I'm arguing that because of certain measures that have been taken, then that has added to excess deaths.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see in the rearview mirror, like in a couple of years out, if they look back at the health numbers for this year, were 50% less deaths attributed to heart disease than typically would have been attributed during this period. Was everything, he had heart disease, but he had COVID. Well, he died of COVID. It's not attributed to heart disease, and things like that. I'm wondering how that'll all pan out,
Well, the problem is that the numbers are not, everything has been super politicized and the
Of
numbers
course.
aren't true because you have a lot of, like, that's why you have, as you were saying, Steve, conspiracies out there
Right.
that like the numbers were being fudged in the hospitals because they were making more money off of, and that
Yeah.
is true that they
Right.
were making more money off of saying or diagnosing or treating somebody for COVID,
Right.
significantly more money. And for a lot of these hospitals that have been, really struggling right now, that is an incentive. It's just
Yeah.
a matter of like, when obviously when you have human beings, there people are incentivized by different things, and unfortunately there is no trust in anything that is put out there anymore because the the media, we always talk about how the media pushes all these stories and they have these narratives, but it's like we have cognitive dissonance. We only want to believe them sometimes, and then other times it's like when it agrees with our narrative, then it's like, no, 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 definitely they're propagandists and all this,
Mhm.
and so I just don't give the media the benefit of the doubt, and a lot of this information that people are getting is from the media. They're not actually looking at the numbers themselves.
Right.
And
But that's why I say, like, I'm interested in looking a couple of years out, looking back, because the numbers recorded for heart disease are going to be the numbers that are recorded, and will there be this weird dip of 2019, 2020, all of a sudden it's down here to that, and that's going to be very telling, right?
yeah, right.
If all these, if the normal rate of heart disease and other type of lung and respiratory illnesses are much lower for this COVID period, and then that's going to be very telling to
But
me.
the other thing is
You know,
people they have heart attack symptoms and they don't go to the ER because they're afraid of being exposed, right? So therefore their condition
yeah,
becomes more serious and there's going to be a higher mortality because they're not going into the ER. So that's going to also be an indirect
that's a factor.
connection.
Yep,
Right.
that's a
And all
factor.
the people
Absolutely. Yeah.
that they weren't getting elective surgeries or what are considered elective surgeries, but whatever issues they were having, obviously, like what you're saying, they got a lot worse because of the fact that they weren't able to be addressed. And
Oh
I
yeah.
know that personally because at the pharmacy that I work at, the homes that we work with, they weren't allowed to have new admissions, and they were under strict conditions of working. And so obviously that does have a trickle down effect, and then when they started lifting some of the measures, then we started seeing kind of like this influx of
Mm.
people because obviously they were like, okay, now that I can come and get my surgery or whatever, then
There's still a whole lot of people out there hobbling around that are looking forward to getting a hip replacement when they feel safe to do so.
yeah, especially
Various.
because hip
Yeah.
replacement, that's a big surgery. That's
Oh, that.
really sensitive.
Yes.
Like there's so many things that are really sensitive that obviously if you're thinking that you're going to catch some sort of disease, that if you go and if you even breathe the air as whoever else is in these buildings, well then yeah, that's going to make you stay at home and first of all suffer, because I mean, I'm sure that even thinking about people that they haven't been able to get the oral care that they need,
Right.
something as simple as that,
Yeah.
Right.
That's
it
true.
does
So I
have a
mean,
lot of repercussions.
so hospitals what do they get? They get like $5,000 for a coronavirus, diagnosis, whatever.
$33,000.
Okay. What's your source on that? Because I've heard different figures.
Do you want me to like look it
Okay,
up for
well, I'm
you?
just saying I've heard 5,000. I've heard okay, so now you're
But
saying
I think it's
33,000.
also
$5,000. You go to the emergency room, and that's five thousand
Right,
dollars. So I
exactly,
mean,
exactly,
I think there's
exactly.
probably also like an ease of getting paid situation, right? They don't have to like go through the
exactly.
Right,
they don't have
right,
to go through the various
right.
insurance companies. It's like, hey government, yes, here's another one.
But they're losing a lot of money because they're not doing the elective surgeries, right? Because a lot
Yes,
of those elective
right.
surgeries, they were big money makers for the hospital. So they were having, the whatever, I mean, 5,000 or 33,000, whatever, may not make up for the amount of elective surgeries they're losing, or maybe it does. I don't know, but
It does. I can tell you, it does not.
it
Elective
doesn't.
surgeries is huge for a lot for
Right. And also I mean
main
I'm
income stream
pretty
things. Yeah.
conspiratorial when it comes to like elective surgeries because I would like to see like the knee replacement surgery rates in the US versus Germany, for instance.
Yeah,
My guess is that probably there's quite a difference.
yeah.
And that if a lot of times these surgeries may not be. I remember when I was a kid, everyone's getting their tonsils out, right? I got my tonsils taken out when I was 4 or 5. Because you had a cold, the doctor would say you're going to get a tonsillectomy and have your tonsils removed,
Well,
right?
just get these out, right? Yeah,
Yeah, and that was the only surgery I ever had in my life, right? I remember
yeah,
remember being in the hospital when I was 5, getting my tonsils out, and like in retrospect, it probably wasn't necessary, but it was great for training doctors. They could do a simple surgery, and it had some uh, supposed benefits. But I had bronchial problems and asthma problems all growing up, and I wonder if that was connected to the fact that I received the tonsillectomy. I don't know, but I'm just saying that it definitely did not solve all of my
yeah. And
problems.
every surgery has risk, and there's going to be a percentage that are going to have side effects and problems.
I
And
have a friend
yeah,
who's a
yeah,
nurse, and he sees a lot
yeah,
of these people recovering from this. And he's like, he finally had knee surgery, but he was like, I was going to wait until the last possible moment. I'm going to go for years to wait until I absolutely need that knee surgery because it only has a lifespan of like 20 or 30 years, and then you're going to
yeah.
need, another surgery at that point, if not sooner, to
Right.
correct the problems caused by the first surgery. So
And then you're older, and it's much more risky for you to go in under surgery.
exactly. Like,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So if you're
That 20
80
years
and you
later,
got some
yeah,
other health problems and your
yeah.
heart's bad or whatever, then it's
Oh,
then it's a
I
risk.
did want to bring up, there is some nice discussion out there in social media regarding, yeah, Trump, you're at Walter Reed. You don't have to worry about the cost of this. Wouldn't it be nice if all Americans, had Medicare for all, and they didn't have to worry about the effects of this? We're in a so it's bringing up all that discussion again that we should have been having
I mean,
constantly
the
about.
guy is such an asshole. I
Yeah.
mean, like he could even say like, "Oh, I empathize with other people who are suffering and hope everyone has it's all focused on him and his
Well, see.
recovery."
I wouldn't say just him. I would say all the politicians are assholes that aren't pushing for health care, available
Yeah,
for
I know,
everyone.
but I'm just saying, what an
Yeah,
opportunity. You're the commander in chief, and you're in Walter Reed, like just to say a couple of words in support of like everyone
yeah,
who may be sick for whatever reason. Just kind of go beyond yourself for once, and
yes, yeah, yeah,
all he
yeah.
does is just everything
Another
comes
bit,
back to himself. I mean, not that he's other
moment
politicians. A
missed.
lot of times they're all psychopathic to a certain extent, or sociopathic. Sociopathic. Sociopath is the correct term. Uh, so I'm not saying he's necessarily that much worse than other politicians, but I just thought like I was like, come on, can't you just say something?
Right.
Um,
No, I agree. I agree. Just another case of a big moment lost, for him. Whereas others would, uh, you know, Biden will say things that sound like he's all for, health care for everybody, but he's not, right? So
he's
I don't
not.
know what's worse.
He's not. He's for their
Right.
access
Well,
to health
can I,
care.
can I say something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I wanted to also note that I think that it's really important that there are a lot of people that, like Biden said, that he's pulling any sort of like negative ads or whatever. And there is, some support out there from the left, like the people that are constantly just going after Trump because they have Trump derangement syndrome, but that they're actually coming out in support. And I am going to again speak for myself and actually say that I hope that the president of the United States actually does get better. If he does have COVID, I hope that he does get better and that he does recover, and that that we can all move on from this, because ultimately he is the president of the United States, and if he succeeds, then we succeed. And like people aren't thinking about the fact that if we're already in a very bad situation heading into this election, and having the president die right before this election. First of
Mm,
all, we're how many enemies have we made all over the world? They would take this as an opportunity to
mm,
do something, or
mm,
they could.
right.
If there were ever a time, it would
Mhm,
be at this moment when, because it's a moment of weakness. It's a moment where it's
right.
like we're scrambling to try to get everything together, And so I think that it's really important that if he does have COVID, then I think that it's really important that, and again, this is my opinion, that we come out in support of the president. I'm not saying that I am going to vote for him. I'm not saying that I think he's a nice person. I'm not saying anything positive about him. I'm just looking at it from the standpoint of he is the president of this country that I happen to live in, and for the sanity of whatever is left in this country, you know, I believe that it's important for him to move past this.
But whatever's going to happen is going to happen. Like our hopes and prayers aren't going to make any difference. Whether we support him or whatever, he's either going to, you know, he's whatever his course is going to be, whatever it's going to be, right? And I think you mentioned something, Daisy, about how, you know, like Biden is pulling these ads and everything. And Caitlin Johnstone had an interesting piece in Medium the other day about how everyone all of a sudden is they're all treating Trump as presidential now because, you know, his life is potentially at risk. So they're all of a sudden they're treating him like they're in the, you know, there's a big club and you ain't in it, you know, to paraphrase George Carlin. That Trump, they're basically all rallying around Trump now and saying you're part of this club, and it's kind of disgusting. I mean, the Chinese at least came out and said, you know, you reap what you sow, basically, that it wasn't as sympathetic. And you just think like, yeah, you're not going to say, you know, die, fucker, die, right? But you're going to say like, do you have to come out and say like, I don't know. It's just like they're treating him as like another. Are they gonna canonize him after he's gone, just the way they've canonized George W. Bush? You know, as while he was president. You know, are they going to make Trump was like, oh, he was so charming because he was just off the wall, and he would say these crazy things, but we all loved him, you know, and he was great and whatever. I just wonder.
Yeah, I keep making it's funny you bring up of W. Bush. I keep making the point that that, you know, when W. Bush was running back whenever, he was also Hitler Satan, and now, you know, Trump is Hitler Satan, but they eventually came around to loving W. Bush, giving him Obama gave him a Liberty Medal. They hang out with him, they love him,
right?
And you're right, it's a big club. We're not in it. Is Trump different? Is he a populist that's not really 100% in that club? I'm not sure if it's all political theater and he just goes along and plays the role really well. I think the fact that there haven't been new wars shows that he is kind of fighting that a little bit with his hands tied behind his back because of the constant legal assault he's under.
Right. I mean, I agree. Despite himself, he's done certain things. Maybe he has, at a certain level, he's thinking that he's just not a geopolitician. Like, you know, he has trouble finding countries on a map, much less figuring out, you know, what the strategy is geopolitically. I don't think, you know, he's all about casinos and building, you know, tall buildings with his name on it.
I think so.
And that's fine. You know, he's a real estate developer.
So, I think he probably has. If Russiagate is anything, it's probably some illegal deals he did to build things in Moscow. You know, he probably did grease some oligarchs' palms or whatever. You know,
right. Yeah. But I mean, you know, Hillary had the uranium deal or whatever. Too,
oh,
so it's all like,
Bill,
you know, it's
Bill
not
Clinton
just,
got the $500,000 from Moscow banks for one speech, and
right.
Anyway, I mean, there's a whole bunch of things you get into about like what happens. You know, what does it look like if Trump passes? You've got then Pence running again, Pence taking over, and then Pence running.
Yeah, I think so. And who would he choose as a running mate? Nikki Haley?
Yeah,
no, because he wouldn't be able to be in a room alone with her.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah, it might be incorrect for us to have. I mean, it might be like a morbid or incorrect for us to have this discussion, kind of, or we might not have time for it anyway because it's huge.
Okay.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Well,
I guess we won't get into the whole. It's a Nancy Pelosi conspiracy so that she can be president.
Right.
Well,
right.
Nancy Pelosi's 80, so I wonder if Dems are rethinking that. I wonder if they're rethinking the fact that the next person in succession is 80 years old. You know, and nuts, in my opinion.
Yeah.